Welcome to the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright. This show is all about honoring you as a spiritual being, having a human experience. You are here for a reason, and it's no mistake that you are here on earth right now. Spirit has guided you to this very moment in time, so you could hear the messages Pam is about to share with you. She is a multidimensional healer, light language channel, transformation coach, wife and mother, committed to helping you discover the tools and practices to empower you to live the best life you can. You get to choose the spirit path you take. You can connect to the spiritual guidance already all around you. Get ready to live a fully empowered life. This is the Empower Me Show. And welcome to a very special episode of the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright. My name is David Buck, and this is Pam Bright. Yesterday was our 20th wedding anniversary. Wait, no, it's tomorrow, isn't it? By the time you see this or hear it, it will be yesterday. Because when tomorrow is today, it will be the 20th of July. And 20 years ago on that date, we got married. So we're pre-recording this the day before that you will see the day after of our anniversary, which is really tomorrow. There you go. How's that for an intro?
Wow. So this is my dear husband, David, who loves to mix you up with his language, because you know why he does that? Because he's all about perspective and he's all about shifting your paradigm. This is my wonderful experience of David Buck, is that he's all about that. And I am really excited to bring this show to you today. My name's Pam Bright. I am your hostess every Thursday on the Empower Me Show. And in the write-up, I talked to you about that. Yes, we're celebrating today. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yay us, yay us, yay us. We've made it. It's amazing that we've lasted this long. And you know how we last this long? Communication. Communication is the key, folks, to a lasting relationship. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's very much worthwhile. And it is, I wouldn't have it any other way. Would you?
No, but I would add a few things. I mean, we didn't prepare a list. We could make a list, probably write a whole book about what goes into making a relationship last. Communication is important, but also you have to be able to let things go. You know, it's not as if we exist in perfect harmony all the time. So when things get out of alignment, and they just do every time, you either come back to it or, you know, you let go of it. It's a process. It's a continuous commitment.
Yes, it is. And talking about alignment, I, as a hostess, always need to be aligned, and I assist this guy here in being aligned with me so that we're going in the same direction. Mostly. We try anyway. So I'm going to align us with some sacred sound and some sacred voice. Ma na 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 na. Right? You can join in if you want to. Okay. Otherwise, you can just listen. And I invite you, the listener, to listen as well. If you're watching this very silly recording right now, invite you to close your eyes and allow yourself to simply go within. Go within to your heart space, because your heart never lies. Your heart always knows the truth, and your heart will lead you to your spiritual connections that are vital for staying in this human form on this planet Earth at this time and always. So I'm going to do some sound for you, and I invite you to invite your guidance in, whatever that looks like for you. Creator of all that is, the one who lives and breathes within all things, we thank you for our lives today. We thank you for this day. We thank you for our spiritual partnership, David Buck and Pam Bright. We have come together as souls, having a human experience, and we are so grateful that you found a way to connect us together 20 years ago in a chance meeting at a coaching school. It was wonderful to have that experience. It totally took me off guard, and I have never been the same since, and I'm so grateful for that. So, Creator, we ask now that all these beautiful beings that are listening into this episode be touched and guided and receive in a new way what the word partnership means for them. We ask that all the spirit guides, teachers, and angels now come in for each person. We invite in the beings that work with the great central sun, Metatron. We ask you to hold the portals open from the great central sun and invite in all of those beautiful energies into this space now to work within. We invite in Archangel Michael, who always delivers the truth to us on a daily basis. We thank Archangel Gabriel, who assists in communication. We ask our guides, teachers, and angels of the spirit realm in all forms, the totems, the animal beings, the tree people, all the creepy crawlies and the beings of the forest and the seas. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Nana yeta itana itena I namaki itapasena yeche. Ala kinama anisa nanaki ababa intu antaki itanamaki atana yeke. Ala cheche nanaisetu uku namayeke. Huta sanakia te ketada de. Toke na ba bebe chi daba. Inanase. We thank the beings that hold the sacred marriage of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in this marriage and in this partnership. And we now open our hearts to you right now in full surrender. And so it is.
So if there are two great quests in life, and there are more than that, but the two main ones I think are to find yourself and what it is you're here to do, and then to find someone else who's going in a similar direction. That's kind of a good basis for, not good, but one way you could look at a basis for partnership. And there are many reasons that we have discovered why we are together over the years, and we keep recommitting to that. But I think that it's a concept that goes way back. When I was very young, I started encountering the idea of soulmates, and I thought, okay, well, there's a romantic notion of you find that one special person once in your life, and that's your soulmate. Recently, I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard it said that or expressed that everyone you encounter in your life is a soulmate of sorts, because they're there for a reason, to reflect something or to show the way or to be a guide somehow. So there's an interesting notion and intersection between those two fairly high extremes. But I think that we run in the middle somewhere in our soulmate-ness.
Well, we try and stay in the middle, but we kind of go off course, right, from time to time. And that is the interesting thing about the path, right? I remember hearing this a long time ago about someone who, I think actually it might have been even a pilot that mentioned in, I don't know if it was a movie or a radio show or something, that I heard that pilots don't ever go in a straight line. You can't ever fly a plane in a straight line, because you're dealing with all the different elements of the skies. So you're dealing with pressure in the clouds and this, the formation of the winds, and lots of different aspects of flying go into the flight. And so usually when they want to go from here to, let's say, in a straight line there, they usually have to go over here, and then they might not need to go up, and then they need to go down, and then over here. So it's never in a straight line. It's always kind of looks chaotic if you were to see it on a map. And some people, if they were to watch David and I from day to day, they would wonder if we were really having a great time, because any of you who have seen us or heard us off camera know that we tend to be a little loud sometimes, and sometimes a little argumentative sometimes, and a little bit of chaos sometimes. And somehow we still continue to come back together and love each other immensely.
There's no manual for this. There are plenty of books on relationships, but I think it might come down to two things. And of course, it's more than that, and it's not give and take. It's give and receive. And that's an important distinction, because when the word take implies that you take something from someone else, and to receive something carries with it a different energy, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it does. It does. And I definitely have learned a lot about receiving, especially in this relationship with David. When David met me, I was a giver. That's what I knew how to do. I was a massage therapist. I'd been doing that on a regular basis, giving all the time. So that was normal for me. Receiving was not so easy. And David kept giving and kept giving. And I kept coming to him, especially early on, asking him, are you sure? Are you sure I'm broken? Right? Because that was the state that I was in. I felt broken. I felt flawed. I felt like I didn't measure up. I thought, don't you know who you're getting? Like all of these beliefs that I had that were in the way of intimacy when David came into my life. And he just kept coming back and saying, I want to be with you. I'm like, okay, well, let's go. I just said yes. And that's a big thing that I want to convey, is sometimes the way through is to simply say a yes.
Yeah. And when I met you, I had very little experience of soul guidance. And I didn't have a lot of questioning about you and the relationship that we were embarking upon. But over the years, I've discovered that it was really soul guidance that brought us together in many ways, because we've enhanced each other's lives in many ways, and just kind of helped us on the journey. And that's, if you're looking for a relationship and you're looking for that kind of partnership, you might find it, but you'll find it by looking for those things within yourself first. We're going to take a break here in a moment. We're going to expand upon that idea a bit as we go on.
Okay. We're going to take a break.
We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the Empower Me Show. I'm here with my sweet husband, David Buck. Today he's sweet anyway.
Oh, thank you.
Usually he is sweet. My name's Pam Bright. I'm so glad you're here, folks. We are celebrating our 20 years of marriage. Wow, I can't believe it still. But you know what? We also couldn't believe that we have a 17-year-old child who's going to graduate next year. That's down the road. We're going to talk about that a little later. But first, we wanted to share with you kind of our beginnings of relationship. And I have a different story of our first encounter and our first few days or weeks together than David has. So we're both going to share with you what we remember, and then we're going to go from there. So do you want me to start or you start?
You go ahead.
Okay. So this is what I remember from meeting David. So we were in this coaching school, as I mentioned. It was the Academy for Coach Training in 1999.
Yep.
Wow, 1999. And I felt like I was a mess at that time and emotionally really raw, having some challenges in my personal life. And I was actually at that time still married to another person and on the way out, but I was like really raw, trying to figure life out. And I remember, didn't know anybody, didn't know a soul in this group that we were in. We were like, I don't know, 20, 30 people in this group. But I remember this man that had silver hair and a suit. It was a gray suit, and he looked very handsome. And he was talking to these, I don't know, 2 or 3 people across the room. And I just was mesmerized. It was like, who is this dude? I have no idea who this guy is. But, you know, sometimes you have those encounters where you just feel this pull magnetically towards people. That was what I was feeling, and I didn't have a reference for it. But I knew that there was something about him. I had to get to know him. I had to get to know who he was. And so I kept finding a way to be in the same vicinity as David was. And so it took a couple days, I think, before I actually could have a conversation with him, because he was very, very amiable and very social, but seemed to be able to do that with ease, which was something that was not comfortable at all for me in social situations, was to talk to people. But we found each other in a conversation, and then we found each other in these small group experiences. We had to be in pairs. And that was the first conversation that I had with him, was talking about our lives. And he told me a story about Independence Day, because we were coming up on 4th of July. And he talked to me about his relationship that had just ended. Interesting. Relationship just ended. I was in a marriage that it was almost dissolved. And here we met. Okay. So we were both in breakdown, which is what it's a coaching term. And what happened is magic. We both started emoting immediately together and felt like I'd known this person forever. I was like, what is going on here? I don't understand this at all. And I was so raw. But I knew that something magical was happening. So that was my first memory of how we met. What do you remember about 1999 at Academy for Coach Training?
Well, yeah, I was in perhaps as much breakdown from a number of different personal issues that I was going through as you. So we were sort of broken together, and it's a common misconception. And I really want to single that out for just a moment, that if you consider you or part of you broken, consider people like Stephen Hawking and Helen Keller and other people who have achieved great things, where society would have looked at them and said, well, you're broken. What good are you? What contribution could you make? So consider that carefully. And, it's not always easy, but it's important. I think one of the things that was interesting about our first meeting was we had an exercise together to get up on stage and do a presentation. And I think it was a coaching presentation, right? Like because it was in coaching school. So,
Yeah.
talking about the value of coaching. So it was a challenging exercise for two people who've never met each other to get up on stage and just talk naturally about this thing that we were learning about. And I just remember feeling really relaxed up there on stage, and just felt like a natural fit. Perhaps more natural than anybody I'd met before. And that's kind of, I didn't have all the knowing that I do now about why we were drawn together, but I just kept going with it. And there was, shortly after we met, I think I wrote you an email where I talked about my impressions of why we were compatible. And I remember the title of the email was called "We Do Woo Woo." And I hadn't considered myself a woo woo person before, head in the clouds and very deeply spiritual. And there's always degrees that you can go further with that. So I'm sort of middle of the road. I still consider myself sort of middle of the road, but I'm more open to all of those realms than I ever have been. And that's been a slow progression over the last 20 years.
Well, yes, but the biggest thing, yes, we do woo woo. I was used to that. But at the very end of this email, now, David and I had only known each other a couple weeks. Okay. And I remember when I read his last sentence, actually it wasn't a sentence. Well, yes, it was a sentence. And then signed it. He said, "I love you, David." And I was like, wait, what? Wait, you love me? And I remember reading that and going, wow. And, of course, all of the alarms in my head went off, because you got to understand, okay, if you know anything about 12-step recovery, okay, I've mentioned this, I'm in 12-step recovery. I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. I'm also a recovering codependent, okay, which means that those rules, quote unquote, of the 12-step program talk about not enmeshing ourselves with other people because it's emotionally unhealthy, right? So here I am, a married woman who is attracted to another man, and which is like a no-no, right? All of my things that I'm saying are supposed to be healthy, I'm doing. So I'm attracted to somebody else. I'm actually feeling drawn to be with this person, and I'm not quite divorced yet. And I'm a recovering addict alcoholic, and I'm a recovering sexaholic as well, because that was a big part of my alcoholism. This whole list goes on, right? And yet I hear "I love you" from David. And there was a part of me that was like, wait, are you kidding? This is not right. Is he deluded? Is he off his rocker? Does he tell all his, female people this phrase? But then there was the other part of me was like, there was a kernel of truth there that I couldn't deny. And my soul knew it. My soul knew it intimately. And my soul kept pulling me along, pulling me forward towards the inevitability of being with this man that I call my love, my beloved, which is what David means, and my destiny. So don't deny yourself the still small voice in your head that talks to you about what step to take next, because it will never lie.
So we're going to take a break here in a minute. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the nature of healthy relationships and what it takes to be in a committed relationship for a long time, like 20 years. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back. You guys are still here. Thank you for being here. So David and I were just talking about relationships, and with Lydia, thank you for being our producer today. And we have different tools that we use in our relationship to stop, change, start. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by that, David?
Well, I think it's a really important, especially if you get into an argument or things aren't going the way you think you want them to go. You just stop, which is really a pause. And it's important that the other person knows, I'm not stopping you. I just want to put this on pause for a moment. And then you change, you both take a moment to try and see if you can change where you're coming from. And then you start up again. It's so helpful, to stop, change, start idea. And you could use it in just simple multitasking too, because scientists have said you can really only do one thing at a time, even though people try and achieve all these multitasking heights. You really can only give your attention millisecond by millisecond to one thing at a time. So it's important to stop, change, start. We're teaching our teenager how to drive, and it's really important to let go of everything before you drive, because then you can be safe, and your life depends upon it at that time.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we do in every show, we at least try to do this, keep this in a focus, is give you tools, tips, and techniques to use about whatever subject matter we're talking about. And I have gathered some tools around taking care of myself and my well-being, but also with our relationship as well. This little device here, I don't know if you know what this is. This is called a pendulum. I got this years ago. I was like, why do I have a pendulum? What am I supposed to do with it? Well, I've learned how to program it. Okay, so I recommend that you look that up if you don't know how. What I did with mine, it's a very simple, show me a yes. Show me a yes. And it goes clockwise like a clock, right? Okay, now show me a no. And it goes counterclockwise. It knows what it's supposed to do because I've programmed it with my own well-being, with my own soul, with my own spirit, okay? So you want to use it as stop, change, start, okay? We want to clear whatever energy is going on. And sometimes it takes tools that are outside of ourselves to be able to access it. So what I do is I want to clear something. I just say, okay, clear. And I'll do it myself. Clear, 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 clear this energy, clear, clear, and clear. And it just goes until it's done. Okay. All right, so that's one way. You want to get things going properly and in the proper way for your relationship or whatever's going on for you. You just say, okay, please create this communication smoothly and effortlessly now. And look at that. This pendulum is now going clockwise. See, it's intimately connected to me. So might not work so well for David because it's not programmed to him, but you can use this tool anytime for yourself.
Yeah, and there's so many different kinds of tools. I've been holding a crystal. I found this crystal that's really amazing. If you don't have a power piece like this, or something that's sacred to you that you can put your energy into it and it gives energy back to you. It can be a grounding piece. We have lots of these sacred items that we surround ourselves with, instruments and medallions and all kinds of things. So find something that works for you to give some of the stuck energy or angry energy or whatever you need to let go of. And those items can help clear that for you. So again, there's so many tips and techniques. And that's why I started earlier by saying, find yourself first, then find someone who's going in a similar direction.
Yeah. So one of the things that just occurred to me is we just did stop, change, start for you. for those that want to know how to keep a relationship healthy and together, like, the first thing that I always talk about is you got to make a commitment, right? And you got to keep coming back to it. Every single day I recommit to this relationship. But off the top of your head, because you're so good at doing this off the top of your head, and it's already inside of you, is what are 3 to 5 tools that, or steps that people can take to recommit to a relationship, a project, a trajectory, something that is really important to them?
Well, and this goes beyond relationships, but certainly it can form the basis of a long-standing one. And I need a third C. So you can come up with a third C for me while I talk about the first two, which is what occurred to me is communication and compromise. Communication is so important because if you don't communicate what you're feeling, what you want, what you are not willing to do, the other person doesn't know those things. And that's so crucial. That's very crucial information. The other thing is compromise, because nobody can ever get everything that they want. You can't always get what you want, according to the Rolling Stones. And that was a brilliant song. So it's really important that you communicate again and again and compromise again and again. And you don't compromise your safety. You don't compromise those things that feel like they're against your soul. So, and it's not always easy. What's the third C?
Well, I said it, commitment.
Oh, commitment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, it has to start with commitment, right? When I talk to you about 100% responsibility in life, that's where it starts, right? When I take 100% responsibility for my life, that means that I'm responsible for my actions and reactions to every single piece of my relationship with David. Now, I can tell you, sometimes I swallow hard when I even say that, but that is freedom, okay? Because one of the things that I hear all the time from David, and he reminds me all the time, is what's my part, okay? Because what I tend to do, and this is programming, guys, I grew up with blame and guilt. Okay. It's not my parents' fault, right? I'm not blaming them for that. That's just the way that they knew life. It was passed down to them generationally, right? So I got it naturally. Blame and guilt and shame. That's what we lived with in our home. But we didn't talk about it outright. So there was a lot of different actions and reactions that occurred in my household. So coming into this point of responsibility really shifts all of that to one of choice. Okay. Choice could also be another C that we use.
It could be, and that's really powerful too. The choice, and I would end with that. If there's an order and it's non-linear, but if there was an order, it's commitment, communication, compromise, and choice.
Oh, I like that. Ooh, yummy. We just came up with 4 steps.
The 4 C's of a healthy relationship.
I love that. Oh my gosh. We got to get that put down.
Well, I think we just recorded it, but anyway, and choice is really powerful. And I would say it's the most powerful, all of them, because you have a choice about what, things will happen in life and they'll be beyond your control, but you can still choose to accept them. If you deny that they happened, if you deny your feelings, if you deny someone else's communication, if you deny those things, it compromises in a negative way the entire structure.
It really does. It really does. And so this is the time to really, I like to highlight and I like to help illuminate really what works well with the people that come on my show. And what I want to say to you about this guy here is one of the things that I truly value in our relationship is that David will always remind me about perspective and really changing my mind and getting off my high horse if I am in a position. Okay. When I am, taking a stand and insisting on my way, it doesn't work in relationship. Okay. It really doesn't. And I have come up against this time and time and time again in this relationship, but also in my life. And I'm not saying it can never work, because I do believe in causes and I do believe in standing your ground. And what I want to say about that is allow yourself to soften, allow yourself to not be an immovable mountain. Because when you're an immovable mountain, you don't let anybody else in. Okay. And I have been there in this relationship with David. I've also been in that way in my life. And I've softened and I've grown and I've changed and shifted because I don't want to lose this guy. And what I can tell you is that when my stubbornness has gotten in the way and put a wall up, we almost ended because of that. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that it's the end all.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that for a moment too, because we were separated for a short time and we had to find our way back together. And it remains one of the single most defining periods of our relationship. And that we came back together in a commitment. We had to find ourselves again and each other. And we had to go through those, what is your commitment? What is the communication that needs to happen? What is the choice you're making? And what are the compromises that you're willing to make? And compromise is the trickiest probably of all of them, because it's important that you have principles. It's important that you stand up for what you believe in. It's important that you don't compromise your safety or some part of you that would diminish you. Healthy relationships build yourself and the other person up.
They really do. They really do. So, what are some of one or two, or maybe there's more, but what are one or two of the biggest learning experiences of relationship, in our relationship specifically, and the other person that lives in our house?
Well, we'll talk about Nova in a moment, but the notion that you frame this whole show around, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, is a blending. It's a mixture of spirituality and earth-based reality. And I love it. I think it's great. We worked on that together. We worked on creating your business together and this podcast together. And, in that working together, that's another thing we didn't even talk about, is for partnership to work well, you're not wearing the same outfits all the time. You're not engaged in all the same activities and you're having all the same friends. You need variety, you need individuality, and you need a time to come together and work on things together, and go in the same direction. So I think that's really, really healthy. And certainly one of the biggest ones for us has been raising a teenager. And it doesn't seem like 20 years. It seems more like 30 in a very good way, because our lives have been so filled up with so many things. And so time does not pass that quickly for us, at least for me.
Well, what's really interesting is that probably the first 3 years, maybe, of Nova's life, Nova was Sarah Rose when she was born. And she's gone through so many changes since she was born, but so have I, and so has David. So when she was born, so to give you some context, so she was born in 2004. I was still getting used to life in this this 3D world, I was still getting used to life here from when I had my coma in 2001. Okay. So many things were happening and changing for me from the time that 2001 in April, I had my stroke and coma. Then 9/11 happened that same year. And so after those two events, I was like, my brain was like scrambled eggs for a long time. Okay. Then David proposed to me very shortly after that. The next year, 2002, is when we got married. Right?
Yes.
Yes. This is what happens. My brain gets into this little locking mechanism where it has to try and remember something and have to check it out with David. But so time just kept speeding up. Then we got married in 2002. Then Nova was born in 2004. So all these things were happening, right? And I was still kind of in this other world of processing because I was in this spiritual evolution that I didn't understand. Most of the time, I still don't understand it, but I'm more conscious of it. And I'm more conscious of my ability to check things out with somebody else. And that's a huge part of our relationship is receptivity and receiving.
Yeah, when you can bounce ideas off of someone and have kind of a reality check sometimes into, well, okay, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think about that? And you won't always agree. We don't always agree. And sometimes we have long-standing unresolved issues and we keep going and they may never be fully resolved to anyone's great satisfaction. And that also has to be okay too. So you can't resolve everything either. That's one of the compromises, to let go of, like, okay, I can be at peace with this, and then find the things that you really can't be at peace with. But, certainly our life together as parents has changed us. We're not the same people that we were when we met.
Oh gosh, no.
And I think that there was a divine destiny of us coming together, that we were being led. That's one of my favorite ideas that I've grown to adopt, is this idea of divine guidance, that you're being divinely guided every step of the way. You don't know it until you become aware of it, and then you lose that. It's not like something you work with all the time consciously, and you can keep presencing it for yourself. I think
everything's in divine right
that's
order.
what you tell me. At the times when things seem most difficult, you will say everything is in divine right order. I'm like, really?
And
wow.
I know, but you know why I do that is because I hear it. See, the longer that you are connected into your spiritual path and you're listening on a daily basis to guidance, you start hearing things in your head. You're not crazy, I can promise you that. But sometimes you kind of feel like, wow, did I really hear that? But I hear that constantly. Everything is in divine right order. And it comes in for me at times when everything's in chaos. Okay. So one of the things that we learned in landmark education is that chaos is a high time for creation. When you're in chaos, creation is happening. And I know it's crazy to even think about, but that's what's true, is that lots is happening. And, they say Rome was not built in a day. Well, your dreams are not built in a day. So whatever your dreams are and your requests to spirit are, you need to allow it time to manifest and come into form.
Yeah, and keep coming back to it. It's really worth it. If you look it's important, I think, to step back sometimes. And we've both done some really deep spiritual work. I've been on a vision quest. You've been on a vision quest. We've had various um, spiritual growth exercises and processes and workshops together and separately. And I think that's really important because, your life is a choice. And if your life is a choice, what are you going to choose it to be? What do you want it to be about? What direction are you headed in? I thought of something earlier around the area of compromise, which is the extreme form of saying it is don't let other people's programming compromise the direction that you're headed.
So how do you use that in parenting?
Well, it's like you talked about how you don't blame your parents for the patterns that continue to exist in your life. And I think that's important, including blame, letting go of things like that, identifying it within yourself when you can. And that's something I work on every day as well. What can I let go of? What can I I come up against? Oh, I really want this to go this way. Oh, it's not going to. I can let go of that. There's parts of it that I can't sometimes because it's about achieving some sort of goal, but I try and be conscious of that. That's one of the things we come up into conflict with often. But I think that other people's programming and your own can get in the way of your own development.
Yeah. So here's a good question for you. Have you had the experience, I'm sure you have, where you're talking to your child, our child, and you hear your mother's or father's voice in your conversation?
I haven't had that, but have you?
I have.
Okay.
I have. And I think the reason you haven't probably is because you started landmark education when you were 7.
9, but yes,
9.
very early.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when somebody starts personal growth work that young, they tend to grow up with it, right? So a lot of the old programs that many of us have running constantly, to someone like David doesn't necessarily experience. Although I can tell you that I have heard his dad in his voice with some of the things that he talks about and ways of being with our child Nova.
Well, the other thing for me that I really try and do is I think about my words before I say them and think about the impact on them. And, I don't find myself retracting much, but sometimes I do. And I reframe it because, that didn't come out quite how I meant it. It's not the right perspective. And you're right. I do try and speak to perspective and opening things up. And that's why I use humor a lot to look at things in a different way. So I think about the impact of my words upon a developing brain and what they will make those mean. So and I know about the phenomenon. There's a phenomenon out there where, people either become like their parents or they go as far away from their parents as possible. And I think there's also a middle ground because I'm aware that we may be the greatest influence upon Nova's life for the rest of her life in terms of the way she thinks about things. So we encourage Nova to think, think for themselves.
Yes. And if you're a parent of a child who is a teenager, then you know how quickly they are changing. It's like it's staggering to me how fast they're developing. And I don't know. I'll have to talk to parents that are parents of teenagers that were teenagers many years ago when I was a child. But I would say that the teenagers are developing faster than ever now. And they're watching their parents. They're watching their peers. They're watching their teachers. They're watching us, folks. So guess what my message to you is? Take responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, your speaking, your heart connection, your connection to source, right? They're watching you to know how normal is supposed to be, or how to navigate this life, which, and they're independent. They're becoming more and more independent. The younger they are. So do yourself a favor if you're a parent and allow yourself to communicate with your child, no matter how awkward it might be.
Yeah. So we just have a couple of minutes left here, but I want to speak to that for a moment. And another thing I heard one time, and it's not an uncommon idea, is that we're all teachers and students of each other. And I think that's important to reflect. And why don't we go over those 4 C's again? And if we were to put an order to it, it's commitment.
Yep.
Then communication.
Yep.
Then compromise.
Yep.
And choice.
Yeah, and you love that. I love that so much.
You can play with the order of it, and it's non-linear, but those are important aspects to keep coming back to again and again in relationships, but more importantly for yourself to start with.
Well, and that's the thing. Okay. I remember that I took on partnership. See, I have my partnership stones here. Partnership at the beginning of this year. I keep coming back to it because it's so important. Anybody that you are in a relationship with, whether it's a husband, a wife, a child, a grandparent, a mother, a father, the postman, anybody else that's in that you interact with, you're in a relationship with. So partnership is key, folks, to learning about yourself. I am David's mirror. David is my mirror. I am Nova's mirror. Nova is my mirror, right? The mirror principle goes back. The very first mirror principle book that I ever read was Shakti Gawain's Creative Visualization. Today, you know it as the law of attraction. Okay. Lots of different teachers now are teaching it, but it's really what you put out there comes back to you in some form. So
it's also
really,
karma.
Yeah. So really be conscious, folks, about what you're doing. Okay. Yeah. We can no longer be idle about this. It's imperative that we be conscious about our actions and conscious about who we're being.
Especially in the world today, with all of everything seeming to be just fractured in so many ways. We can bring it back.
Yeah.
And we can work on that at least.
Yeah. And be kind to yourself. Okay. It's a lot to do in this world these days to just say yes to your life.
Yeah.
I often say you're courageous for being a human today. You're courageous for taking on this journey because you didn't do it lightly. Your soul knew that it needed to be a human in this lifetime. And so take it on with every single support system that you possibly can, right? Books and music and speaking and singing and dance and, community is really important as well, that we come together and we share in these important ways.
Well, thank you so much for having me on as your special guest here today. And thank you for a great 20 years, which we'll celebrate tomorrow, which you will see as yesterday, but it is today now, the day before. So.
We are big sci-fi fans, so this goes right along with that whole world of sci-fi. Yeah. So
thank you for joining us today.
But we are not quite through because we need to let them know how to communicate with us.
Okay.
So if you want to go to actually you can go to Pam at brightbutterflynetwork.com now, my new website. Yay! But if you want to be on the show, because we'd love to have you, whether it's David and I both or me alone as your host, you can go to the Empower Me show and let me know that you want to be on the show, because I'd love to have you. And we're often letting people in on live shows now. This one will not be a call-in show because obviously we're going to be on our honeymoon for our 20-year anniversary, but you can contact us in both of those ways, and we'd love to see you and know that you are passionate about your life and that you are taking a new step for yourself, because that's what it's all about. So until next time, know that your life is all about you. Know that you make your own choices, and we are always here for support for your amazing journey. Be well and have an amazing day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright on Transformation Talk Radio. Tune in to learn more about living a fully empowered life. Remember that your life is up to you, and you can choose the spiritual path you are on. There is spiritual energy and wisdom in everything and everyone around you. Listen carefully for what the universe is trying to tell you in every moment. You are already being guided along your journey. Call upon your spirit guides anytime you need help with anything. Know that you are safe in every moment, even if it seems that you are not. For more information about Pam Bright, visit brightbutterflyenterprises.com or email theempowermeshow@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. We hope to see you next week.